breaking news. And when I say breaking, I mean the kind of news that causes absolute panic in the cozy wood-paneled boardrooms of the European defense industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Germany, the traditional cautious, let's check the paperwork 3 times, giant of procurement, has just made a stunning move.
A huge move.
They have rejected a massive 600 million euro electronic warfare system. They didn't just pause it, they killed it.
It is a total bloodbath for legacy tech. And the reason they gave, that's what makes this a watershed moment.
Right.
They looked at the data coming out of the blood and mud in Ukraine and realized this gold-plated high-tech system was completely irrelevant in the face of modern drone warfare.
Irrelevant. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a terrifying word if you are a defense contractor used to 20-year contracts. Germany is adapting. And for the first time in a long time, they are adapting fast.
It's the difference between buying what you've always bought because it's comfortable and buying what actually survives on the battlefield.
Today is Friday, January 31st, 2026. And before we unpack this massive pivot, if you are supporting the defense of Ukraine and want to stay ahead of the curve, I have one request.
Oh, subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports.
Trust me, you don't want to miss the breakdown we have today. It's a big one.
I'm Alex. Join me in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today, we're going to cover the absolute upheaval happening in the European defense industry.
Upheaval is the right word. We are talking about Germany killing off these legacy superweapons to pivot entirely to AI. We're also going to look at the boardroom drama where a couple of agile startups completely humiliated a defense giant, and why the founder of Spotify, yes, the music app, is pouring hundreds of millions into drone warfare.
And that's not even the big cliffhanger.
No, it's not. Plus, we have a shocking report that a so-called game-changing drone might have a critical flaw right on the Ukrainian front line, and we'll look at why major European super projects like the future fighter jet are crumbling while drone factories are rising inside Ukraine.
It is a classic case of the old guard versus the new reality. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this headline first because it is staggering. Germany canceling a 600 million euro electronic warfare, or EW, system. In the world of defense procurement, projects usually drag on for decades. I mean, once you sign the check, you usually finish the project just to save face. What actually happened here?
It is the definition of a hard pivot, and honestly, it's refreshing. Usually, you're right, a contract that big is too big to fail.
Right.
But German authorities looked at the hard data coming out of Ukraine, specifically regarding drone warfare and jamming, and they realized this legacy EW project was designed for a war that no longer exists.
It was designed for the Cold War, not the drone war.
Exactly. It was built to jam expensive, high-flying military communications or massive radar systems. But they looked at the cost exchange.
Ah, the cost exchange.
The threat in Ukraine isn't always a $50 million jet. It's a swarm of $500 first-person view drones buzzing at treetop level.
So they realized they were building a system to hunt whales, but they were getting eaten alive by piranhas.
That is the perfect analogy. And they labeled the system irrelevant. The lesson from Ukraine is brutal but clear. Traditional, expensive systems that take 15 years to develop cannot survive on a battlefield saturated with cheap, adaptable, expendable drones.
It's a terrible return on investment.
A terrible one. If your system costs millions and can be swarmed by drones costing the price of a smartphone, you've already lost.
So they aren't just saving the money, they're moving it somewhere else.
Exactly. This is a strategic reallocation. Germany is moving that cash away from complex superweapons and pouring it into agile, AI-integrated, mass-producible systems. They are prioritizing the protection of critical infrastructure, or CRITIS, as they call it.
CRITIS. That's a term we're hearing a lot more lately.
It stands for Kritisch Infrastruktur. We're talking about power plants, data centers, airports. The realization is that in modern hybrid warfare, the front line isn't just in the Donbass, it's everywhere.
That makes sense. We've seen reports of unidentified drones buzzing over critical spots in Germany, right?
We have. There have been gray zone threats, unidentified drones spotted over Munich airport, over military training centers where Ukrainian troops are learning to use Leopard tanks.
That's a huge wake-up call.
It is. It's psychological warfare and reconnaissance right in Germany's backyard. So the German federal police has established a specific drone defense unit with a budget of over 100 million euros just for 2025 and 2026.
It sounds like they're finally taking the drone era seriously, not just as a novelty, but as the main threat to the homeland.
They are realizing that you can't shoot down a drone swarm with paperwork. You need hardware.
And that brings us to the biggest upset.
It really does. The startup coup.
This is my favorite part of the research stack this week. It feels like a movie script. You have Rheinmetall, the absolute titan of German defense, the guys who make the tanks.
The guys who've been around for a century.
Getting beaten by two startups.
It is David versus Goliath if David was armed with AI-driven loitering munitions. The German government awarded contracts worth 600 million euros for loitering munitions. Basically suicide drones.
Okay.
Everyone, and I mean everyone, expected Rheinmetall to sweep it. Instead, the contracts went to two companies, Helsing and Stark Defense.
How does a giant like Rheinmetall lose a home turf contract like that? Was it just price?
It wasn't price, it was capability. Reports suggest that during the evaluation at a combat training center, Rheinmetall failed the most basic test. They failed to deliver a working prototype.
Ouch, they didn't have a working product.
Apparently not one that met the requirements in the field. They likely had blueprints or PowerPoint slides or a concept, but Helsing and Stark Defense showed up with systems that worked.
It worked on the day.
It signals a massive cultural shift. Procurement is starting to value working now over big brand name.
That is the Ukraine effect again.
Yeah.
Ukraine doesn't care about the brand on the box. They care if it explodes when it hits a Russian tank.
Precisely. And speaking of names, this Helsing company, there is a very familiar name attached to their funding. Daniel Ek.
The guy who created Spotify. No way.
That's right. Daniel Ek, through his company Prima Materia, has invested 600 million euros into Helsing. Total investment is now up to 1.37 billion.
Wow.
It is the ultimate symbol of big tech merging with defense.
It is fascinating. You go from streaming music to streamlining kill chains. If you can predict what song I want to listen to next, you can predict where a tank is going to be in 10 seconds.
It sounds dystopian, but the underlying tech pattern recognition, large data processing, AI prediction, it overlaps significantly. Ek is betting that the future of war is software, not hardware.
But here's where it gets really interesting, or maybe concerning. We have this breaking report from Bloomberg regarding Helsing's HX-2 drone in Ukraine. Because having Spotify money is great, but war is messy.
Yes, this is the twist. The HX-2 was billed as a mini Taurus, a reference to the powerful cruise missile. It was marketed as a high-tech, AI-resistant drone that couldn't be jammed.
What?
But reports from the Ukrainian front lines suggest it has a critical flaw.
What kind of flaw?
The report alleges that the HX-2 struggled significantly with Russian electronic interference jamming. There were also takeoff issues.
So it couldn't even get off the ground properly.
In some cases. Sources claim Ukraine actually suspended orders because only a small percentage of the drones could operate normally in that heavy EW environment.
Wait, but didn't they just win the German contract based on being high-tech?
That is the paradox.
Oh.
Now, Helsing denies the report, stating that Ukrainian units are still requesting the drones. But this highlights the massive gap between testing range success in a safe field in Germany and battlefield reality in Ukraine.
It's the difference between a pristine lab and a muddy trench.
Exactly. Russian jamming is incredibly sophisticated. They shift frequencies, they blanket entire sectors with noise. A drone might work perfectly in a test in Bavaria, but the moment he crosses the line of contact in eastern Ukraine, it hits a wall of electronic static.
So this is the danger.
It's the danger of the tech startup approach. Sometimes the minimum viable product isn't viable enough to keep soldiers alive.
It really shows that Ukraine is the only testing ground that actually matters right now. If it doesn't work there, it doesn't work. Period.
Precisely. And that is why the next development we need to discuss is so smart. It's about not just sending weapons to Ukraine, but building them in Ukraine.
You're talking about the joint venture, right? Quantum Frontline Industries.
Yes. This is a partnership between a German company, Quantum Systems, and a Ukrainian company, Frontline Robotics. They aren't just shipping boxes across the border. They are setting up a factory to produce 10,000 drones per year inside Ukraine.
That is huge. 10,000 a year. That is industrial scale.
It is. And the significance is that it blends German industrial automation, that engineering precision, with what Matthias Lehner from Quantum Systems calls Ukraine's acute sense of urgency.
I love that phrase, acute sense of urgency. It's a polite, diplomatic way of saying, We need these things to work today, or people die.
Exactly. It combines the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
You get the stability of German manufacturing, but the design iterations are driven by guys who were literally in a trench yesterday flying these things.
Right.
That feedback loop is faster than anything a traditional defense contractor can match. If a Russian jammer starts blocking a certain frequency on Tuesday, the factory in Ukraine can tweak the drones by Friday.
That is speed you just cannot get if you have to ship the drone back to Munich for a firmware update.
Right. It's innovation at the speed of war.
So we have the offensive side drones, but we started this by talking about how Germany is rejecting old EW systems. What are they doing to actually shoot down the drones attacking them? Because the old Gepard tanks, I know they're legendary in Ukraine.
They're MVPs.
They are the MVPs of shooting down Shahed, but Germany gave them all away. They are retired in Germany, right?
They are. Germany effectively emptied its garage of Gepards to help Ukraine. They had a massive gap in short-range air defense. Now they are filling it with the Skyranger 30.
Skyranger sounds like a sci-fi movie. What is it?
It is a mobile air defense system mounted on Boxer armored vehicles. Germany just ordered 49 of them for about 600 million euros.
So it's the Gepard replacement?
It effectively replaces the Gepard. And it's smarter. It has a 30-millimeter revolver cannon. But the secret sauce is the ammunition. It uses something called a HEAD ammo.
A head. Break that down for us.
It stands for Advanced Hit Efficiency and Destruction. Imagine a shotgun shell, but it has a brain. The system radar tracks the drone. As the bullet leaves the barrel, the gun programs a timer into the bullet based on the exact distance to the target.
Wait, it programs the bullet as it is leaving the barrel.
Yes. Milliseconds before it leaves the muzzle. The bullet flies out and explodes at the exact programmed distance, right in front of the drone. It releases a cloud of heavy tungsten subprojectiles.
So it creates a shotgun blast of tungsten right in the drone's face.
Exactly. It creates a deadly cloud. You can't dodge it. Whether it's a swarm of small drones or a cruise missile, they fly into a wall of shredded tungsten. Plus, it carries Stinger missiles for longer range.
That is terrifyingly effective. And I see here that this isn't just Germany acting alone. Austria is buying them too.
Yes, Austria is buying 36 units. This connects to the European Sky Shield Initiative.
Right.
It's a move toward a mobile, networked air defense across the continent. Instead of every country having different incompatible systems, they are starting to standardize on things that actually work against the threats we see in Ukraine.
Creating a shield that covers the continent, not just individual borders.
That's the idea.
So, we have agile startups, we have drone factories in Ukraine, and we have tungsten clouds. It sounds like things are moving in the right direction. But not everything is going smoothly. Let's talk about the dinosaurs in the room, the super projects.
The dinosaurs are struggling to breathe.
Yeah.
The biggest casualty right now looks to be the FCAS, the Future Combat Air System.
This is the sixth-generation fighter jet that was supposed to replace the Eurofighter and the Rafale, right? A joint project between Germany, France, and Spain. The project of the century.
That was the dream. But the reality is a nightmare of bureaucracy and corporate ego. The latest news is that a key trilateral meeting between the nations was postponed indefinitely.
Postponed indefinitely is diplomatic speak for we are screaming at each other and nothing is working.
It is. The conflict is a power struggle between Airbus, representing Germany, and Dassault, representing France. Dassault demands clear leadership. They don't want design by committee. They want to run the show.
And Airbus isn't having it.
No. It is national pride and industrial share on the line. And it's gotten so bad that Michael Schulhorn, the defense chief at Airbus, hinted that the project might actually split into two separate aircraft just to save it.
Two separate aircraft. Doesn't that defeat the entire point of a joint project?
Completely. It destroys the economies of scale. You just have two expensive competing national projects. But this reflects the inherent difficulty of these cross-border mega projects. They take decades. They cost billions.
While they're arguing.
And while they're arguing over who gets to design the cockpit handle for a jet that won't fly until 2040, companies in Ukraine are iterating new drone designs every 3 weeks.
It really highlights the speed difference. The FCAS feels like it belongs to the 20th century. It's like watching a glacier move while a wildfire is spreading.
It does. And it's not just the jets. Look at the German Navy. They had this dream of a super frigate, the F-126. But the Dutch shipyard missed the 2027 deadline. So what did Germany do?
They ditched the dream.
Partially. They're pivoting to order 8 simpler, proven MEKO A200 frigates instead.
Again, choosing availability over perfection.
Availability is a capability. A theoretical supership in 2035 cannot protect a grain corridor in the Black Sea in 2026. A simpler ship that actually floats today can.
A lesson they're finally learning.
The hard way, but yes.
So what does this all mean for the actual fighting? We have all these procurement shifts, but how does it translate to the ground? You found a specific combat vignette that I think perfectly illustrates the cost exchange of this war.
This story comes from Ukraine's 59th Brigade. It perfectly encapsulates why the old model is dead. They spotted a Russian TOS-1A Solntsipyok.
The heavy flamethrower system, that is a nasty weapon.
It is a horrific weapon. It fires thermobaric rockets that suck the oxygen out of the air. It wipes out entire grid squares. It's a high-value asset, worth about $15 million.
Okay.
The Russians knew it was valuable, so they painted it white for winter camouflage, trying to hide it in the snow and the tree lines.
They did everything right by the old book. Camouflage, concealment.
But the drones found it. The 59th Brigade used cheap FPV drones, costing maybe $500 each to strike it.
Just with FPVs.
They didn't need a massive airstrike. They swarmed it with cheap plastic and explosives. They disabled a $15 million system with pocket change.
$500 versus $15 million. That is the math.
That is the math that is killing the old military-industrial complex. You cannot sustain a war where you trade $15 million for $500 repeatedly. You will go bankrupt long before you run out of enemies.
And this is exactly why Germany is pivoting.
Exactly. They know they can't afford to be on the receiving end of that math.
And speaking of affording the war, we have to talk about support. Because while Germany is pivoting its industry, the support for Ukraine needs to be sustained. There was good news from Norway.
Fantastic news. Norway has pledged to maintain its support for Ukraine in 2026 at the same level as 2025. We're talking over $7 billion.
That is massive for a country the size of Norway. That is punching way above their weight class.
It is huge. And specifically, they are focusing on air defense and developing a unified European drone strategy. It shows that Europe, at least the northern part, is digging in for the long haul.
It's not charity.
No. They realize that supporting Ukraine isn't charity. It's an investment in their own security architecture. If Ukraine holds the line, Norway doesn't have to.
So if we pull back and look at the big picture here, we have Germany canceling irrelevant tech, we have startups beating giants, we have massive aid from Norway. It feels like Europe is finally waking up.
They are waking up to the fact that the gold-plated era is over. For 30 years, Western defense was about building very few, very expensive, very exquisite platforms that look great at air shows. Ukraine has proven that quantity has a quality all its own and that adaptability beats pure specs.
The drone era isn't coming, it's here.
It is, and it's ruthless to anyone who refuses to adapt.
You know, it makes me think, if major defense contractors like Rheinmetall can be beaten by startups like Helsing, and if massive fighter jet programs are crumbling while drone factories rise in Ukraine, are we witnessing the complete death of the old military-industrial complex in real time? Is the future just guys with laptops and 3D printers out innovating billion-dollar corporations?
That is the question that should keep every CEO of a legacy defense company awake at night. The barrier to entry for warfare has collapsed. Intelligence is now more valuable than raw steel. The garage startup is now a strategic asset.
A fascinating and slightly terrifying thought to end on. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex Anaria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
And remember, staying informed is the first step in understanding the world we live in.
Absolutely. If you found this deep dive valuable, please subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.